What if I told you there's a beach in Greece so breathtaking that some of the world's wealthiest people would rather keep it away from the crowds? Hidden beneath towering white cliffs and surrounded by water so blue it almost looks unreal, Porto Katsiki feels like a place straight out of a dream. But behind its incredible beauty lies a story that very few visitors ever hear. A beach shaped by powerful earthquakes, protected by massive cliffs, and quietly transformed into a favorite escape for super yacht owners, millionaire entrepreneurs, and celebrities searching for something money rarely buys anymore: privacy. In today's video, we're uncovering 12 fascinating facts about Porto Katsiki and revealing why so many powerful people hope this incredible place remains one of Greece's best-kept secrets. But before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for weekly documentaries about the world's most extraordinary destinations. Now, get ready to discover a beach where nature created such a perfect masterpiece that perhaps the greatest luxury isn't visiting it, but finding it before everyone else does. Number 1. Geography. Porto Katsiki is located on the southwestern coast of Lefkada, one of the most breathtaking islands in the Ionian Sea, western Greece. Unlike most Greek islands, Lefkada is connected to the mainland by a floating bridge, allowing visitors to drive there without taking a ferry. The beach lies about 28 miles, 45 kilometers, from Lefkada town, and roughly 22 miles, 35 kilometers, from the village of Vasiliki, along winding mountain roads lined with olive groves and cypress trees, before suddenly revealing one of the Mediterranean's most spectacular landscapes. What makes Porto Katsiki truly unique is its geology. The beach sits beneath towering white limestone cliffs rising more than 330 feet, 100 meters, sculpted over millions of years by earthquakes, rain, and the relentless force of the sea. These massive cliffs reflect sunlight onto the water, creating shades of blue so vibrant that they almost appear digitally enhanced. It's no surprise that photographers from around the world rank this coastline among Europe's most photogenic destinations. Instead of soft sand, the shoreline is covered with smooth white pebbles that constantly shift as winter storms reshape the coast. With no coral reefs protecting it, Porto Katsiki is fully exposed to the Ionian Sea, where stronger waves and ocean currents help keep the water remarkably clear throughout most of the year. Seen from the top of the cliffs, the beach looks almost hidden from the rest of the island. For centuries, reaching it by land was nearly impossible, and perhaps that natural isolation is exactly what preserved Porto Katsiki for so long. But that peaceful secrecy wouldn't last forever. Number 2. From hidden paradise to a Greek icon. For much of the 20th century, Porto Katsiki was known almost exclusively to the residents of Lefkada and a handful of fishermen navigating the Ionian Sea. There were no parking areas, staircases, beach facilities, or organized tours. Reaching the beach was extremely difficult. The cliffs were too steep for a safe descent, and depending on the weather, approaching by boat could be equally challenging. Back then, anyone fortunate enough to visit Porto Katsiki tended to keep it a secret. The few photographs that existed circulated among experienced travelers and specialized travel magazines long before the internet transformed breathtaking landscapes into global sensations. The beach was considered one of the Mediterranean's hidden treasures, known only to those willing to venture beyond Greece's most famous destinations. Everything began to change during the 1980s and 1990s, when new roads connected Lefkada's mountainous interior to the island's western coastline. The construction of a parking area, and most importantly, the long staircase descending the cliffs made the beach far more accessible. Gradually, Porto Katsiki evolved from an adventurous destination into a regular feature of international travel guides ranking Europe's most beautiful beaches. Its biggest surge in popularity came years later with the rise of social media. Photos taken from the top of the cliffs spread across the internet, and the unbelievably blue water looked so perfect that many people assumed the images had been digitally enhanced. Before long, Porto Katsiki had become one of Greece's most photographed beaches. But while millions of travelers were just discovering the spectacular coastline, a much quieter group had already realized that the greatest luxury wasn't simply the scenery, it was the exclusivity surrounding it. Number 3. a quiet escape for millionaires and billionaires. When most people think of luxury vacations in Greece, Santorini and Mykonos are usually the first destinations that come to mind. They're world famous for five-star hotels, fine dining, and glamorous nightlife. But there's one thing many wealthy travelers prefer to avoid. Where there's too much fame, there are usually crowds, cameras, and very little privacy. That's one of the reasons why the Ionian Sea has increasingly attracted entrepreneurs, investors, celebrities, and super yacht owners over the past few decades. Unlike the heavily visited islands of the Aegean, Lefkada offers equally breathtaking scenery with a far more relaxed atmosphere. During the European summer, luxury yachts frequently cruise quietly between Lefkada, Kefalonia, Ithaca, and Meganisi, exploring secluded coves that remain largely unknown to visitors following the traditional tourist routes. Porto Katsiki has become one of the highlights of this exclusive sailing route. Many visitors spend only a few hours on the beach, but those arriving by yacht experience something entirely different. A coastline filled with hidden bays, crystal clear water, and sheltered anchorages protected by the island's dramatic cliffs. It's common to see luxury yachts anchored offshore while their guests admire the scenery before continuing toward even more secluded beaches. Ironically, that sense of discretion has become part of Porto Katsiki's appeal. Compared to Greece's most famous islands, the region receives far less attention, making it especially attractive to travelers who value privacy over publicity. And it's this unique balance between extraordinary natural beauty and understated luxury that has turned Porto Katsiki into one of the Ionian Sea's most desirable destinations.
Number 4. The Parade of Super Yachts. Every summer, from June through September, the Ionian Sea becomes one of Europe's most exclusive sailing destinations. Unlike other parts of Greece dominated by large cruise ships, these waters are known for something far more discreet: elegant super yachts cruising quietly from island to island. Some of these vessels stretch well beyond 330 feet, 100 meters in length, and operate as floating luxury estates. Many feature helipads, swimming pools, private cinemas, gyms, and crews of dozens. Rather than staying in luxury resorts, their owners often spend weeks exploring the Ionian Islands, choosing secluded beaches where they can anchor away from the crowds. Porto Katsiki is one of the highlights along this route. Although the beach has no marina or docking facilities for large vessels, it's common to see luxury yachts anchored offshore in deeper water. From there, guests may continue by tender to nearby coves or simply remain on board, enjoying one of the Mediterranean's most spectacular coastal views. From the sea, the towering white limestone cliffs create an entirely different perspective from the one experienced by visitors climbing down the famous staircase. This also explains why photographs of Porto Katsiki often feature luxury yachts floating in the turquoise water below the cliffs. For many super yacht owners, cruising the Ionian Sea isn't just about visiting beautiful beaches. It's about finding places where nature still takes center stage. And yet, despite all that luxury, the next chapter of Porto Katsiki's story reminds us that nature always has the final word.
Number 5. A beach constantly reshaped by earthquakes. At first glance, Porto Katsiki looks timeless, as if its towering white cliffs have stood unchanged for thousands of years. But the reality is very different. Lefkada's western coastline lies within one of Europe's most seismically active regions, where powerful earthquakes have shaped the landscape for centuries. Over the years, several major earthquakes have transformed Porto Katsiki. One of the most significant occurred in November 2015, when a magnitude 6+ earthquake struck the island. Massive rockfalls tumbled down the cliffs, temporarily blocking parts of the beach and permanently changing sections of the coastline. Thousands of tons of limestone crashed onto the white shoreline, proving that this breathtaking landscape is still being sculpted by nature. Earthquakes, however, are only part of the story. Every winter, powerful storms sweep across the Ionian Sea, sending large waves crashing directly into the cliffs. At the same time, rainwater slowly seeps into cracks within the limestone. Over time, enormous sections of rock weaken and eventually collapse onto the beach, continuously reshaping the coastline. That's why Greek authorities closely monitor the stability of the cliffs. During certain periods, sections of Porto Katsiki have even been temporarily closed because of landslide risks.
The beach that fascinates millions of visitors is still evolving today. And those same natural forces are also responsible for creating one of Porto Katsiki's most extraordinary features, its unbelievably blue water.
Number 6. The secret behind the impossible blue water. Almost everyone who visits Porto Katsiki for the first time asks the same question. Is the water really that blue, or have the photos been edited? The answer surprises many people. Yes, the water truly looks that vibrant. And the most remarkable part is that this extraordinary color comes entirely from nature. The first reason is the white limestone cliffs themselves. As sunlight strikes the massive rock walls, part of that light is reflected onto the surface of the sea. At the same time, tiny limestone particles suspended in the water help scatter blue wavelengths, enhancing the water's incredible clarity. It's a natural optical effect similar to what happens in certain glacial lakes, but exceptionally rare along Mediterranean coastlines. The second factor is the depth of the Ionian Sea. Unlike many beaches where shallow water extends far from shore, Porto Katsiki becomes deep only a short distance from the coastline. As sunlight penetrates the water, longer wavelengths like red are absorbed first, while blue light travels much farther. The result is the brilliant sapphire color that has made the beach famous around the world. Timing also matters. Between late morning and early afternoon, when the sun stands high overhead, the cliffs reflect the maximum amount of light onto the sea, producing the most intense shades of blue. On cloudless days, the contrast between the white cliffs, the turquoise water, and the deep blue sea creates a landscape that almost looks unreal. It's one of the reasons photographers consistently rank Porto Katsiki among Europe's most spectacular natural locations. Yet there's one viewpoint that many visitors completely overlook.
Number 7. The viewpoint most visitors almost miss. Surprisingly, Porto Katsiki's most famous photograph isn't taken from the beach itself. The iconic image seen on postcards, travel magazines, and countless social media posts is usually captured before visitors even step onto the shoreline. Just beyond the main parking area, a short path leads to a viewpoint perched high above the limestone cliffs. From there, the entire beach unfolds below, revealing the dramatic contrast between the brilliant white cliffs and the deep blue Ionian Sea. This is the perspective that has made Porto Katsiki one of Greece's most recognizable coastal landscapes. There's another fascinating detail many people only notice once they're there. Depending on the position of the sun, especially from late morning through early afternoon, the reflection on the water changes dramatically. Within minutes, the sea can shift from deep sapphire to turquoise, emerald, and even an almost electric blue. It creates the impression that the beach changes color throughout the day. Professional photographers often arrive early in the morning or stay until late afternoon, when softer light and longer shadows transform the scenery once again. Porto Katsiki can look like several completely different beaches in a single day, simply because of changing light conditions. But before reaching that spectacular viewpoint, every visitor must first overcome one of the beach's most memorable challenges.
Number 8. The staircase every visitor must climb. After taking in Porto Katsiki from the clifftop viewpoint, it's finally time to reach the beach itself. To get there, every visitor must descend a long staircase built into the steep hillside, following the dramatic cliffs all the way down to the shoreline. The staircase seen today has been rebuilt several times over the years. Earthquakes and rockfalls along Lefkada's western coast have repeatedly damaged sections of the access route, requiring Greek authorities to reinforce stairs, railings, and viewing platforms to keep visitors safe. Depending on ground conditions, certain sections may occasionally be closed for maintenance or safety inspections. Going down usually feels easy. Excited to reach the famous beach, most visitors hardly notice the effort as the turquoise water grows closer with every step. The real challenge begins on the way back. During the summer, when temperatures often climb above 86 degrees Fahrenheit, hiking back up hundreds of steps under the Mediterranean sun can be far more demanding than most people expect. Even so, few visitors complain once they reach the top again. The climb becomes part of the adventure and naturally limits the number of people willing to make the journey. Those who complete it often say the reward is worth every single step. But once they finally arrive at the beach, they discover another surprise. Beneath those calm blue waters lies a sea that can be far more powerful than it appears.
Number 9. The sea that looks calm until it isn't. In photographs, Porto Katsiki appears incredibly peaceful. Crystal clear water, towering cliffs, and an endless blue horizon create the impression of a calm beach all year round. But spending time there quickly reveals that appearances can be deceiving. Because Porto Katsiki faces west, it is fully exposed to winds crossing the Ionian Sea. On calm mornings, the water often resembles a giant natural swimming pool. However, as the wind strengthens, especially during the afternoon or after changing weather conditions, the sea can become noticeably rough, with waves crashing onto the pebble shoreline and dramatically changing the atmosphere. Another important factor is the beach's steep underwater profile. Only a short distance from shore, the seabed drops away rapidly, allowing incoming waves to retain much of their energy. Under certain conditions, stronger return currents can also develop, making it important for swimmers to pay attention to local conditions before entering deeper water. While Porto Katsiki is generally considered safe for swimming, local authorities recommend checking sea conditions before going into the water. This contrast between serenity and raw natural power is part of what makes Porto Katsiki so remarkable. A visitor may arrive in the morning to perfectly calm water and return a few hours later to an entirely different seascape. And as the sun begins to sink toward the horizon, the beach offers one final spectacle that many people find even more unforgettable than its famous blue water.
Number 10. The sunset that transforms the entire beach. If there is one moment when Porto Katsiki feels almost unreal, it's at sunset. Because the beach faces west, it enjoys a perfect view of the sun slowly disappearing over the Ionian Sea, creating a spectacular display that changes minute by minute. As the sun approaches the horizon, the towering limestone cliffs stop reflecting their brilliant white color and begin glowing with shades of gold, orange, and soft pink. The sea transforms as well. The deep blue gradually gives way to shimmering silver and golden reflections until the surface looks almost like a giant mirror stretching toward the horizon. The scenery changes so quickly that many visitors simply remain on the beach watching the colors evolve. That's why photographers and filmmakers often consider late afternoon the best time to capture Porto Katsiki. Softer light, longer shadows, and the dramatic contrast between the cliffs, the sea, and the sky create images that seem almost impossible to recreate. On cloudless evenings, the sun appears to sink directly into the Ionian Sea, producing one of Greece's most iconic coastal sunsets. Yet there's another fascinating detail. Although thousands of visitors stay until sunset, relatively few know that Porto Katsiki has a season when the beach becomes even more magical. During those months, the crowds largely disappear, temperatures become more comfortable, and many travelers believe the beach reveals its most authentic character.
Number 11. The season that completely changes Porto Katsiki. Looking at photographs, many people imagine Porto Katsiki as a peaceful beach with endless open space. In reality, the experience depends heavily on the time of year. During July and August, the height of the European summer, thousands of visitors arrive on Lefkada's western coast every day. Parking lots fill early, lines form along the staircase, and finding a comfortable place on the beach often requires patience.
The reward, however, is warm water. During peak summer, the Ionian Sea typically reaches temperatures between 75 and 81 degrees Fahrenheit, 24 to 27 degrees Celsius, making swimming especially enjoyable. Air temperatures frequently climb above 86 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 degrees Celsius though, meaning the climb back up the staircase can feel much harder than the descent. That's why many experienced travelers prefer the shoulder seasons, especially May, June, September, and early October. During these months, the weather remains pleasantly warm, the sea is still comfortable for swimming, and visitor numbers drop significantly. The beach feels quieter, photography becomes easier, and visitors have far more space to appreciate the scenery. Winter offers an entirely different experience. Many tourist services operate on reduced schedules, some facilities close altogether, and stronger seasonal storms often create rougher sea conditions. Yet for photographers and nature lovers, winter reveals Porto Katsiki at its most peaceful. A nearly empty beach where the only sounds are crashing waves and the wind sweeping across the towering cliffs. And perhaps that's exactly why this place has become so desirable among people who can choose almost anywhere in the world for their vacations.
Number 12. Why people say billionaires want to keep Porto Katsiki a secret. We finally reached the mystery behind this video's title. So why do so many people describe Porto Katsiki as a beach billionaires want to keep secret? The answer isn't a conspiracy. Instead, it comes from the role this spectacular coastline plays in some of the Mediterranean's most exclusive sailing routes. During the European summer, luxury yachts frequently cruise along Lefkada's western shore before continuing toward islands such as Kefalonia, Ithaca, Zakynthos, and Corfu. Many pause near Porto Katsiki so their guests can admire the scenery or swim in nearby permitted waters. These itineraries often attract business leaders, celebrities, and wealthy travelers looking for destinations that offer breathtaking beauty without the overwhelming crowds found in places like Mykonos or Santorini. At the same time, Porto Katsiki has never become a luxury resort destination lined with five-star hotels or massive beachfront developments. The island's dramatic geography has naturally limited construction. Towering cliffs, the absence of buildings on the beach itself, and relatively restricted access have helped preserve a landscape that still looks remarkably close to what visitors discovered decades ago: brilliant white cliffs, crystal clear water, and nature taking center stage. Perhaps that's what gave birth to the idea of a billionaire's secret, not because anyone is hiding Porto Katsiki from the world, but because many experienced luxury travelers appreciate exactly what has become increasingly rare: a place where nature remains more important than extravagance. There's a certain irony in that. While some of the world's most famous beaches continue to struggle with overdevelopment and overcrowding, Porto Katsiki quietly reminds us that the greatest luxury isn't owning paradise, it's finding it before it changes forever.
In the end, Porto Katsiki proves that some of the world's most extraordinary places are remarkable not only because of their beauty, but because they have managed to remain almost unchanged while everything around them has evolved. Between towering cliffs shaped by earthquakes, a sea that can transform within hours, and scenery that continues to captivate generations of travelers, this beach reminds us that true luxury may never have been about comfort or exclusivity. True luxury is finding a place where nature is still the main attraction. Perhaps that's why Porto Katsiki is often associated with billionaire travel itineraries, not because anyone is trying to hide it from the rest of the world, but because experienced travelers know how to recognize something that has become increasingly rare: a destination capable of inspiring awe without being overwhelmed by development. There is also an important lesson here. While many famous beaches have gradually disappeared beneath resorts, buildings, and massive crowds, Porto Katsiki continues to demonstrate that protecting a place can be far more valuable than exploiting it. Some landscapes don't need to be reinvented to impress us. They were extraordinary from the very beginning. Now I'd like to hear from you. If you could visit only one beach in Greece, would you choose Porto Katsiki? Or is there another Greek beach you think deserves the crown? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to World in Perspective, and turn on notifications. Every week, we explore some of the world's most fascinating, mysterious, and breathtaking destinations together. See you in the next video.